if this loan does not have interest charged to it, then would that be considered a taxable gift? And other factors may come into play, but is it a taxable gift?
I don't know the amount. For example, there is
Well, I used 200,000.
Okay, fair enough. Again, at risk of walking through a hypothetical where I don't know the facts, as a general matter, yes, there's a tax. You're describing a situation that may have a taxable event.
That was North Carolina Congresswoman Virginia Foxx yesterday grilling IRS Commissioner Daniel Werfel about whether a $200,000 loan to a family member would have tax implications. Good question, right? The Congresswoman is referring to this $200,000 check signed to Joe Biden, written by his brother James Biden in March of 2018. Let's talk about it. Joining me right now is Kentucky Congressman James Comer, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee. Congressman, thanks very much for being here. We haven't spoken to you in a couple of weeks because of the speaker race, and I want to understand what you've been able to gather in this 2-week period. You did get Jim Biden's bank records, right? Talk to us about that and about that check we just showed on screen.
Well, the American people are going to hear a lot about Jim Biden over the coming weeks from the House Oversight Committee. We knew a lot about Hunter Biden because he left a laptop lying around, and our first subpoenas have been focused around Hunter Biden, shell companies, and things like that. We built up a case to where we can actually acquire Jim Biden's bank records. I subpoenaed those 3 weeks ago and have them in possession. Now, that check you just displayed on the screen was one check that Jim Biden wrote to Joe Biden. Now, the White House is claiming it was a loan. I don't believe it was, Maria, but regardless of whether it was or not, we traced how Jim Biden paid the money back to Joe Biden. Either he paid him back $200,000 or paid him $200,000. It doesn't matter. Joe Biden is $200,000 better off because of an influence peddling scheme that his brother led with a company called AmeriCorps Health, which was a failing healthcare company, where Jim Biden went to them and said, because of my last name, Biden, and because of my brother's contacts in the Middle East, I can help you get all the capital you need to get out of financial trouble. That is influence peddling 101, Maria, and that is how Jim Biden got the money to pay Joe Biden that $200,000. So what we proved since I've been on your show last is that Joe Biden benefited financially from his family's influence peddling schemes.
Yeah, and I want to put context here because while Jim Biden is sending Joe Biden a check for $200,000, in March of 2018, the Chinese, I believe, were still sending money to Jim Biden. One of my sources tells me that Chairman Yi, the chairman who ran CEFC, the Chinese energy company, had just been detained for corruption in China, yet Hunter and Jim were focused on altering documents to keep paying themselves with the remaining millions of dollars left in the bank accounts. Was Jim Biden still getting checks from the Chinese while he sent $200,000 to Joe?
Jim Biden, he was doing it through Hunter's shell companies. I mean, we've talked about this on your show before. This family was involved in one of the biggest money laundering schemes that I've ever seen. And we knew that about Hunter Biden. We suspected that about Jim Biden because there were a few suspicious activity reports pertaining to Jim Biden. But I can tell you with confidence after seeing the bank records, Jim Biden was just as involved in the money laundering schemes and the mysterious transfers of money from China to the shell companies to Jim Biden. And what I always suspected was the arrows didn't stop there. You know, we've shown arrows on your show before where we have China and arrow going to a shell company that the Bidens had to another shell company and then to different Biden family members. I always felt like once you found those Biden family members' personal accounts, that there would be another arrow to Joe Biden. And that's what we found here. The White House cannot explain it. They're trying to change the narrative and say, oh, well, it was the president loved his brother, just like what they say about Hunter, his son. Oh, the president loved his son. Well, I'm sure he did. But that doesn't take away from the fact that Joe Biden benefited financially from this influence peddling scheme, and we believe we found a lot more, Maria, that we're going to be bringing to the American people very soon.
Found a lot more in Jim's bank records?
Yes.
Okay. An oversight committee staffer who is a Democrat says that there is evidence of Joe Biden giving a loan to James Biden. New York Post columnist Miranda Devine posted this on X. Well, why doesn't the White House release the supposedly exonerating bank record instead of continuing to stonewall? Have you seen anything to indicate that there was an actual loan for some reason?
No, and they're lying. The Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, led by Jamie Raskin, have lied so many times. They walked out and said that there wasn't a 1023 that indicated Joe Biden took a bribe. I mean, everything they have told the press has been a lie. Jamie Raskin's the biggest liar in this building. So what the White House is going to do, they'll produce something once they know exactly how many checks I found addressed to Joe Biden.
Wow.
But at the end of the day, there's no document that shows there was a loan. The Democrats on the Oversight Committee, they get the same stuff that I subpoena. When I subpoena something, Maria, they make two copies, one for me, the Republicans, and one for the Democrats, Jamie Raskin. So if they had the darn document, they would have showed it. This is another example of their lies, and the media takes it, not Fox and not Fox Business, but they take it. They say, oh, well, that solves this question. This was a loan. They don't have any documentation to prove it, but they will produce something, Maria. They will pull something out of their rear end that says they had a loan.
Wow.
But at the end of the day, we proved that the money to pay Joe Biden came from an influence peddling scheme.
Unbelievable. I want to move on to another letter that you sent, but before I do you have confidence that Mike Johnson, who is supposed to be becoming the speaker, if in fact he gets the 217 votes, will he give you the directive to continue your work on the Oversight Committee and continuing this investigation into Biden family influence peddling and potential bribery?
Absolutely. I really thought Jim Jordan would be speaker, and then Mike Johnson would take his place as judiciary chair. So I had already had a couple of meetings with Mike Johnson, updating him on what we had and where we were going from here. So he's well-versed and ready to move forward.
Mr. Chairman, you and Congressman Glenn Grothman sent a letter to the Director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. You're demanding answers on how a former spokeswoman for the Palestinian Liberation Organization was hired to vet immigrants. This is the person that's vetting the migrants. This employee also allegedly praising Hamas since the attack on Israel. She was placed on leave last week. Chairman, what happened here?
Well, the Biden administration is more concerned about checking boxes when they hire people than actually hiring the right people and doing the right background checks. They want to have a Palestinian. They want to have a man with a sundress on and a beard and a hairy chest. They want to have, every ethnic group checked. And they don't do the background checks. And what we've got and what we're finding is that they have people that are enemies, that are potentially spies working. At the very least, they're people that don't put America first, that put their homeland first.
Wow.
And it's very dangerous. So we're trying to flush these people out and see how the administration responds once we identify the problem that they have with personnel.
Well, you're also probing something that I've been talking about as well. You and Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene opening a probe into the Department of Defense's policies to ensure that America's military and American weapons are not in the hands of Hamas. You sent a letter to Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin writing this: the committee has seen reports that U.S. manufactured weapons are being redistributed and resold on secondary markets to terrorist organizations, including Hamas. Mr. Chairman, can we get any more inept than this? I know that we left billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of equipment on the ground in Afghanistan. Is that where the Taliban and Hamas and Hezbollah is getting some of this armament? Where are they getting it? And do you believe that this is a probe that is going to unearth U.S. guns and U.S. armament in the hands of Hamas?
Well, for our probe to be successful, we have to get an inventory of all the weaponry that we have, A, left behind in Afghanistan, and B, that we've sent to Ukraine. Those are the two areas where we fear that weapons that we've paid for have ended up in the hands of our enemies. Look, one thing Marjorie Taylor and I agree on wholeheartedly is that this foreign aid business, where we continue to send our hard-earned tax dollars to these countries, it's not working out. There's no transparency or accountability with these tax dollars. And the worst possible scenario is we're sending money to foreign countries and our enemies are taking that money or taking the weapons that we're paying for and using them against American citizens. So we want an accounting of all the equipment that's been left behind. We want to know exactly where Hamas is getting this sophisticated military equipment.
Unbelievable. Congressman, we're going to be watching your fine work. Thanks very much for being here this morning.